Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on our experiences really the next revenue frontier. So my name is Priya and I'll be your moderator for today's session. I'm the editor of Short-Term Rentals, which if you're new here and unfamiliar, we are a B2B multimedia platform focused on delivering content for the short-term rental industry. So today's webinar is brought to you in partnership with Price Labs. So please enjoy this video from our sponsor. Great, so I'll just run us through today's webinar guidelines. So today we have a 45-minute Q&A with our panelists. There will be time at the end for any questions. So if you do have any, please drop them in the chat box at the bottom of your screen. This area is also open for all links of the details related to our speakers as well as Price Lab. So please do check that out if you want to find any more further information. A recording and a summary of today's session will also be sent to your inboxes within the next 24 hours. So please do keep an eye out for that. And if you do have time, then please do fill out a quick survey, which will appear at the end of this webinar as it helps us improve and figure out what kind of content interests you for our next webinar. Okay, so before we get into the discussion, I wanted to briefly set the context. So we're seeing a clear acceleration in the experiences space within short-term rentals. And I've pulled together a few headlines that have made news over recent months related to the topic. So as we can see with stories such as Mount joining Popfly, to major platforms expanding their offerings, whether that's Airbnb introducing new features or Booking.com kind of scaling its attractions inventory, we're seeing a broader narrative here around the experience economy as well. Even alongside advances in AI, we're really seeing the prevalence of experiences across the travel and hospitality space. So the key question for today's webinar is essentially, how does this translate into the short-term rental space, and whether experiences are truly becoming a meaningful revenue stream for property managers? So here are our panelists that we have lined up to speak today. So could I ask each of you to briefly introduce yourselves from left to right, as we can see on screen for ease. So Madison, coming to you, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Maddie Rifkin. I used to be the CEO and founder of Mount and am newly the head of network at Popfly. So excited to be here.
Perfect. Thank you, Madison. And Willie, welcome.
Hi, thank you, Priya. I'm Willie Fernandez. I'm the Chief Sales and Marketing Officer here at Rental Escapes.
Perfect. Thanks, Willie. And Douglas, to you, welcome.
Would be good if I went off mute. Yeah, so Doug Weiss. So I lead experiences here at Airbnb. So that's both responsible for the supply, so figuring out which experiences we want to have on our platform, and then also managing the teams that work on demand. So working with our guests and other people to drive awareness and booking of those experiences.
Perfect. Thanks, Douglas. And James, last but not least, welcome.
Hi, I'm James Wallman. I run the World Experience Organisation. I've come into this world by being a trend forecaster. Are we supposed to be really short? Because you guys literally read out what was on these things. And I don't know what Popfly does. I can guess what Rental Escapes do. Airbnb, I've heard of what you guys do, Doug, and have used the service, I'm proud to tell you. But the World Experience Organisation serves to connect people who make experiences with the ideas and the people, to make better experiences that make people feel more alive, that maybe make them feel happy, that make experiences that are memorable, meaningful, transformational, and that also experiences that make more money, because that way we can spread better experiences, fill the world and people's lives with better moments. That leads to better lives and a transformation in standards and quality of life. Yeah, that's me.
Perfect. Thank you, James. And it's great to have you all with us today. So before we jump into the conversation, we can see that experiences are clearly kind of having their moment across travel and hospitality. And I guess the question for us today is whether that is really translating into revenue for property managers. But before we jump in, I did want to set the scene a little bit more broadly. So James, if we start with you, we're hearing more and more about the rise of the kind of experience economy and experiences at a macro level. So how significant is this shift, and why do you think it is kind of gaining its momentum now?
Really interesting when you say they're having their moment, because to me this is a structural shift. This is not a cyclical kind of, having worked as a trend forecaster since 2003, you see things that come and then they go, and you see things that change over time. And this is, it's a long-term structural shift in the way that things work in our world. We have enough stuff. We've got a lot of material goods after a while. And, you guys working in rental properties, you'll know, and think about how properties have changed for vacations. It used to be the case that a really cheap hotel would have an awful bed in it. None of you are old enough to remember that, but there was a time when cheap places was bad accommodation. But now even the low end provides the services that are kind of enough. And so there's two things going on here. One is the rise of experientialism, where people think of experiences as a way to get status and identity and meaning in their lives, much more so than materialism, which was the thing that drove consumerism in the 20th century. So there's a shift in kind of what people are looking for. So it's a demand shift, but it's also a supply shift as well, based around the idea of the progression of economic value, which is the idea in the Harvard Business Review article from 1998 and the book from 1999, The Experience Economy, about how things become commoditized over time. So we moved from the kind of the agricultural era to the industrial era to the service economy and now to the experience economy. And what happens with each of these, it's not that we don't need foodstuffs and to pull things out of the ground, hence all these wars that are going on at the moment around, oil and gas and water and stuff. But we need those things. But where you make the biggest differentiator for a brand and the way to really therefore create more value and make more money, today experiences are absolutely key. And that has an impact on all sorts of other industries. I'll stop there, otherwise I'll just really go on about this because it's my,
well, leaning into what you're leading into what you were I think about to say, how do you kind of see that translating into other sectors? So hospitality, travel, but also short-term rentals more specifically.
Well, from the point of view of what travel and hospitality does do and has always done, is they are in many ways it's a service industry that enables people to have experiences. If you want to be really technical about it, you can't really give someone an experience, you can give them a service, and the experience is something that happens here inside of themselves. But you can do your best to design something that is going to be the stage for someone to have an experience. So, having worked in the travel industry, I was a travel journalist for a bunch of years as well. What this does for properties, and I'm sure actually you guys deal with this all the time, there's this idea of commoditization, progression of economic value. When you go stay somewhere and you know that a low-priced hotel is going to provide you with a good, clean bed and not too much noise, and you'll get a good night's sleep, how do you compete? How do you compete with those guys? You can't say, we're going to give you better service. I was thinking this the other night. Our cleaner at home had done turn down on my bed. Now, turn down, I'm sure some of you stayed in those hotels that they do a turn down service, and you get the chocolate on the pillow. I mean, really? Is that where we've come to as humans? Is that our evolution, that we care about turn down? No, service is that. And so how do you stand out? You might stand out in terms of, from a personal point of view, the experiences you have in life, but also from the point of view in terms of property and hospitality. How can you enable the people who come stay with you to use your base as a platform to have the kind of experiences that make their time away from work, or maybe they're staying there for work, but their time away from the desk and away from the laptop actually meaningful, memorable, and actually make life worth feel living. And that is, you can do that in property, and some of those Airbnb experiences, Doug, that you guys have been doing, those kind of Polly Pocket, that kind of crazy stuff. One of the members of the WXO was involved with this. We were talking about it recently. It's amazing, right? Some accommodations, you stay there and it's thrilling. We booked something through Airbnb the other summer and stayed in a glass house in a forest in southern France. It was hideous. It was way too hot. We boiled. The bugs were everywhere. But it was so memorable. As a family, we still talk about it. That was not a put down on Airbnb and the experience we had there. I just want to be really clear, because the other thing about experiences, and this is one of the tricky things, especially in the service industry, you have to get it right. But in the experience world, it's fine when it goes wrong. Because the magic of something going wrong is it turns into a story. Story turns into conversations, connections, relationships. That leads to resilience, happiness, a life worth living. So what this has done is it's shifted from, can we provide you with a decent bed? Can we provide you with good service and the basics here? To how do we either provide you with an in-room or in location experience that is meaningful, or how do we connect you to those experiences out there? But I'm sure we're going to hear some much better ideas from these guys too.
Great, thanks, James. So it's kind of adding on the value to that overall guest journey, would you say?
I don't want to say adding on value, because I think it becomes more central, because that's how you differentiate. You think about when as a consumer you're choosing where to stay, how are you making your decision? If you just want a place to stay, there's so many places you can choose. So how do you stand out? And who wants to be the cheapest? I mean, that's okay, right? There's a place for that too. But don't you want to make some money? And if you want to make money, you've got to add value. So I think added value is a mistaken way of thinking about it. You've got to think of it, this is central to what you do.
Yeah. Thanks, James. And it's interesting to see now kind of the approach through the OTA, kind of catering to this shift. So Douglas, if we come to you here, obviously Airbnb relaunched its experiences offering over the past year. So what did Airbnb kind of learn from the initial launch, and how is this new kind of iteration different, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think just building off of some of the points that James was just making, like the reality is that an experience has always been part of the platform, right? When you stay in one of our homes, there is an experience that is part of it. But what we found with our guests is, not, in addition to figuring out where they wanted to stay, they were constantly trying to figure out kind of what were the things that they wanted to do as they visited a variety of different destinations. I think we believe that we have this kind of fairly differentiated point of view where we have a brand that is accessible to anyone, where we serve everyone from low income to high income, but that we're really grounded in the authenticity of the destination and really showing the local side of what a destination might be and the experiences could be within it. When we originally launched back in 2017, I think we were really focused on the unique niche differentiated thing. If you look at some of the release materials from 2017, like the two experiences that we talked about most publicly was like beekeeping in LA and like horseback riding in New York, which are both great experiences, but the first time you visit either of those destinations probably aren't going to be the first thing you look to do. And so as we think about kind of what we're prioritizing with this relaunch in 2025, one is that we really wanted to establish a baseline of quality for every single thing that's on the platform. Everything that is on the platform has gone through extensive vetting just to ensure that the host is someone who knows about the destination and has this expertise and this passion about what they're hosting. And second, that that it is going to deliver a high quality guest experience. But then layered on top of this, which was just a different view on things, is actually making sure we are bringing experiences that people want to do. Instead of trying to build demand from scratch, why don't we lean into the things that we know people want to do and just give them the best experience at those things that really, I think, define what different locations around the world might be. I think a really good example of this, as recently as June of last year, we had literally 0 experiences that went up the Eiffel Tower in Paris. No matter who you are, no matter what your travel history might be, when you go to Paris, you want to see the Eiffel Tower, and that's one of the things that people dream about for decades as they prepare for their trip. And so instead of shying away from those types of things, we've really focused on, okay, we want to make sure we actually serve the guest in what they're wanting. And so how do we make sure that we have that Eiffel Tower, but also have that experiences that is the highest quality one that is out there, and ensuring that we can deliver kind of the best of a location or a destination, whether it be things that are kind of more widely known or things that are kind of more unique and differentiated, and bringing that all onto a platform that they can find anything that they might want to do to complete a trip.
Interesting, thank you. And how central is this to Airbnb's kind of broader strategy now, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really central for a couple of reasons. I think one, we find that bringing these types of experiences to our stays guests have actually driven both a higher satisfaction rate with that stay. So the average rating from stays where they also had an experience attached is actually higher than a stay alone. It also kind of increases their kind of their loyalty and spend with us as a platform. And then third, especially in markets where we are less established, so a lot of places in Asia, places in Eastern Europe and in Latin America, and also with younger generations, it's actually a really good entry point for people who may be less familiar with Airbnb, right? It's a lower ticket, lower priced ticket item. It's something that like is inherently kind of less risky, right? Booking something that is 2 to 3 hours of your vacation versus booking a stay, which is the entirety of your vacation, the risk on something potentially going wrong is obviously much less if something goes wrong with an experience. And what we're finding is that it's actually been a really effective new customer acquisition product for us, because we are able to reach people who potentially were a little bit nervous or, were not yet ready to potentially book their entire vacation with us, but actually have a great first experience with the experience product, and then become actually a part of the larger ecosystem that Airbnb now is.
Right. Thank you, Douglas. And Willie, just bringing you in here, and kind of from the luxury perspective and end of things, how would you say guests are engaging with the experiences today? And are they actively booking? Are they relying on more kind of concierge style recommendations? What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, so during the pandemic and coming out of the pandemic, we saw two things happen. One, what used to be a client's bucket list item quickly became their to-do list. And then two, where the experience was the byproduct of the villa. Now what we see is that the villa is the byproduct of the experience. So now, in the past, guests would call and say, I want to go to the Turks and Caicos. I need a really nice villa. What is there for me to do? Now what we're hearing is the complete opposite, right? Now the guests are really focused on the experiences, right? I want to go bone fishing. I want to go horseback riding. I want to go dining. I want to go play golf. I want to go kite surfing. Oh, by the way, I need a villa. And as a result of those two massive trends and shifts that we've seen in the market, we have made huge investments in growing the size of our guest experience team. We have really focused in going out and finding a lot more local operators that really will deliver that personalized luxury experiences. And to Doug's point, one of the things that we see is a huge repeat rate, and which is one of the reasons why we offer it as a full-on luxury experience. So aside from booking the villa, we also provide the whole guest experience side. But what we tend to see is guests who take advantage of our experiences, and right now we're seeing close to 85 to 90% of all the bookings that we take are opting into at least one service. And of that, about 80% of those bookings are booking at least 3 services. And as a result, what we've seen over the years with more and more guests booking the villa with the services is we've seen our overall repeat rate increase pretty dramatically.
It's interesting. You mentioned there kind of post-COVID, this moved on to a guest kind of to-do list. So I'm hearing kind of similar things across the three of you about the experiences becoming the central kind of factor to the guest experience and motivation when it comes to travel. So is that something that you would definitely say has evolved then over the past few years then?
I would say yes. I mean, if you consider the fact that we were locked down for a year. And even for myself, coming out of the pandemic, when I was looking at planning a trip to take my 2 young kids to Alaska, at first I said to myself, well, I'm going to wait till they're 15, 16 years old when they can really appreciate it. We can do the whale watching and really go ultra adventure. As soon as we came out of the pandemic, my thinking, like many of our guests, like many of us out there, was I'm not going to wait, right? I don't know when I'm going to get locked down again. I'm just going to go do this now. And that's one of the things that we see and we've seen over the years is the thinking that the guest has on what they want to do and how they want to do it and how they want to experience and what they want to feel is so critical that our mindset on our guest experience team is if the clients can dream of it, we will create it. For us, no is not an option. So we take tremendous pride in crafting these experiences that are going to create the moments for our guests that they're really going to cherish for a lifetime. Jamie said it earlier, there's going to be a story, right? There's going to be a conversation. And that's one of the things that we really pride ourselves in is delivering on those experiences that clients come back to us and talk about. I mean, just this past weekend, we had a client who was celebrating a girlfriend's getaway. And they had shared the news with us that it was their dream to have a certain celebrity at their wedding. And I had asked them, well, how's that working out? They go, they're not coming. So we arranged to have cardboard cutouts of the celebrity placed at the villa for their arrival. And on Monday, I got a phone call saying, you really surprised us because we had the celebrity at the villa. So that became a story. And there was 27 of them at this event, and they're all talking about how much fun they had taking pictures with this cardboard cutout of this celebrity, right? Again, those are the stories. Those are the experiences that we look to create for our clients.
Perfect. Thanks, Willie. And Madison, bringing you in here, what would you say kind of is the guest profile of those who are actively seeking experiences? And are there any kind of clear segments that are driving that uptake?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Also for context, because I didn't give that at the beginning. Mount and Popfly, we're on the content creation side. So we work on kind of inspiration, showing experiences, and we really believe that's why people are traveling. So very fitting from what everyone has said so far. I would say in terms of like guest profile and just people that are booking this type of stuff, this might be a little biased, but we're all over social media, TikTok, Instagram. And so even if it is the parents per se, or the older generations booking the travel for the kids are the ones showing the videos, being like, this is why we need to go. Let's go take that hot air balloon ride in South Africa, or let's go see the Northern Lights in Iceland. And then that's prompting why people are booking. Then they'll find the place to stay. So very inspiration driven. I would assume most people have like videos saved and bucket list items just based on content they're seeing online and wanting to really recreate what people are doing and also why people are traveling. They want that photo, that video.
Yeah, definitely. And are you kind of seeing engagement with experiences translate then into bookings kind of from that initial inspiration? So what does success kind of look like in terms of conversion and guest uptake?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. What we used to do at Mount, we did the content side, but we also worked with, 10,000 short-term rental Airbnb hosts and had them connect directly to the experiences so that they could offer their guests. Like we saw probably 95% of the time the guest booking that property and then immediately messaging that host being like, hi, I know you're a local, or they assumed, what would you recommend I do? And we gave the host the power to recommend experiences, make additional revenue from that. So it was very common. And we liked that channel the best because it had that element of trust. So instead of an OTA seeing that you booked, Vrbo, Airbnb, booking.com, that you booked the accommodation, and they're like, hey, here's what we would recommend you go do. And that guest being like, well, great, but why on earth would you recommend this? Like, you live here. They're going to ask that host and they're going to take that recommendation at face value, probably a lot more. And probably we saw a lot more bookings translate that way than just them finding it on Google or AI search or something like that trusted source, which we get from the creator now too, that influencer. It's very important.
And maybe sorry, if I can, is it okay if I just jump in here? Because I think I just want to build on exactly what Maddie is saying, which is exactly what we see with our own community of hosts, where, I think this is one of the things that we consider to be like our secret weapon as we think about our, comparing ourselves to hotels, right? Exactly what Maddie was saying, where it's like, you are choosing to sleep in this person's bed, right? You already have said yeah, I kind of like your vibe. I trust your judgment, I am actually choosing to spend my vacation with you. And so this idea that like, oh, the recommendation that they have has just so much power with the guest that we see like similarly when it's just very organically hosts are making those recommendations, which again, the guests are actually looking for very much. It does convert really, really highly. And so we're investing a ton in just making that easier for all parties, for the guest to understand kind of what are the experiences that we have on our platform, for the guest, for the host rather, to understand the experiences that we have on our platforms, to make it really easy for them to make the recommendations, and then for the guest to be able to really easily book those. It has converted into like real, I think, upside for the host, both in terms of revenue, because we're piloting some some incentives for the host to make those recommendations, but also more importantly, to just creating a better guest experience, which then gets reflected in the ratings and reviews, which really kind of creates this virtuous flywheel.
Interesting. Thank you, Douglas. And kind of keeping on this topic around revenue, to what extent are experiences kind of a meaningful revenue driver for property managers, and what is that kind of bottom line for them? So I guess Madison, we can come to you, and maybe then Douglas and Willie.
Yeah. So in the last 5 years, we were working with all these hosts. They were upselling various experiences. But I would say where the rub is in terms of, I think the host came to us wanting to make, hundreds, thousands of dollars every month on these quote unquote upsells. But for us, they were selling $80 tickets, to like a food tour, that hot air balloon experience. And to make 5%, 8%, 10% commission off of that, the volume you have to do is insane. And for someone that has 1 property, 2 properties, 5 properties, that's really not where the true value is coming. And we always communicated that to our hosts. We're like, look, it's great to make $80 a month, but really where the value is coming is you are now giving your guests that extra level of service where it's like they asked for something, you were able to provide them that amazing recommendation. They're most likely going to be taking photos, videos, posting about it. And they aren't going to be talking about where they stayed. Yeah, the bed was probably great, linens, whatever, but when someone asks them, how was your trip to Africa? They're going to say it was that safari ride or that local they met that took them local food tasting, all of that stuff. I would assume Willie has an opposite perspective, because on the luxury end, you actually can make a fair amount of money on the revenue side from these upsells. But traditionally, like if you're a 1-2 bedroom host, it's more from those extra reviews, 5 stars, putting you on top of the algorithm if you're in the OTAs, that type of stuff.
So it's kind of raising your overall profile, if you will, as a property manager. Guests are going to go away from their stay kind of distributing that content, you mean, and kind of linking that to their stay and crediting it to the property manager, and that kind of really boosting their overall experience.
Yeah, exactly. And then you go from average occupancy every month, 65%. Now you're in like 80, 90%. And that has a massive impact on your revenue as opposed to just, taking that 5% cut.
Yeah. Thank you, Madison. And Willie, bringing you in here. What are your thoughts?
Can I just jump in with a thought there? So, was that rude?
No, James, go right ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Willie. It's just that what Maddie, to be partly because I'm just like, I'm really enjoying this conversation. I'm learning a lot from you guys. It's really helpful. I was just thinking about what Maddie just said. Is the revenue is in the adjacencies to the experiences themselves, right? As in, go from 65 to 80% in terms of that occupancy level. And I'm just thinking about arguably the world's greatest experience creator in the world, Disney, or certainly one of the originals who's done this so well. I also mentioned because they're joining the WXO this month. Actually, I talked to somebody last week, which is very exciting. A whole group of them, but they have moved from an IP-driven company that also has parks to they create these great movies, but the money is in the parks. If you're a reader of The Economist, you look up the stuff on Disney, it's phenomenal. They're pouring billions in because that's where the money's being made, but it's not being made in the experiences themselves. It's all the adjacencies around it. It's the F&B and the accommodation where the actual revenue's being made. But the key is, and I want to pick up on what you were saying there, Doug, about that increase in satisfaction and what it does for loyalty, because people don't remember exactly as you just said there, Maddie. Interesting what you were saying there, Willie, as well. I was talking to someone at the Walpole the other day, the luxury organisation in the UK, about the rise of experiences. You don't remember the linen sheets. You don't remember the fact the shower worked. You don't remember all that stuff, but you do go on to talk about the experience. But the money is kind of what sits around it. So it's really interesting to hear that at Disney's level, this multi-billion-dollar organisation, that the money is in the adjacencies, and at the short-term rentals individual with 1 to 5 properties. That's also where it's been made. I'll pipe down there. Sorry to interrupt, Willie. Sorry.
But James, I'm going to chime in here for a second because my backyard is literally the Magic Kingdom. So I'm going to talk to you about Disney for just 1 second. So Disney has also made, just like Universal and SeaWorld and even Legoland, they have made huge investments in adding experiences, right? So, you can go do a VIP tour on a Monday where they'll charge a guest $425 an hour for an 8-hour minimum. And in a day, they'll sell 300 to 350 of those tours, right? Or they'll do the character breakfast, or they'll do a Keys to the Kingdom tour, or they'll take you fishing right in front of the Magic Kingdom castle. So even Disney and the theme parks have picked up on adding these experiences as part of the overall ticket. And they're booming. Pre-pandemic, they were doing a chocolate dinner cruise where you could watch the fireworks, and that was $100. And good luck trying to get on the cruise without a 3-month reservation, right? So even Disney has capitalized and has learned that guests are looking for these added experiences versus just riding on Mr. Toad's Wild Ride or the Dumbo. It's like, what else can I do at the park? What else can I add onto those services, to where now a family of 4 coming here to the theme parks for 5 nights, $12,000, $15,000 for 4 days. Maddie, to your point, where you talked about luxury. So, the experiences and what we do, yes, there is revenue and there's good revenue. Is it meaningful revenue? I wouldn't say it's meaningful revenue compared to the villas, or to the villa bookings. But for us, the experiences are a core part in being able to drive a one-stop, soup to nuts luxury experience for the guests, where they understand that not only are you going to book the villa, but we're going to take care of all the in-villa services, all the in-destination experiences, pick you up at the airport, arrange the fast track service, bring you to the villa, pre-stock the villa with food, coordinate the menus with the chefs, the allergies, bring the masseuses in, or the fire dancer, or a petting zoo. Anything and everything that you want, we take care of. For us, the core reason why we do it is really the loyalty and that repeat rate, because it provides the guest the opportunity to just do everything under one umbrella. And then with that elevated experience and our knowledge and expertise, that guest comes back to us time and time again. And with multi-generational being our number one clientele, we've started to see, the kids, call it mom and dad, our grandparents booked the first trip. Now we're getting mom and dad booking the second trip. And even in some cases, we're starting to get that third generation booking the trips. And that's largely because of, again, the experiences and what memories they had as part of that trip that we planned for them. And that's really what we take such pride in, and why we've actually doubled the size of our guest experience team, to be able to spend more time with the guest in crafting those experiences and really listening to what they want to get out of that trip.
Okay, thank you, Willie. And Douglas, bring you in here. What are your thoughts in this, and when it comes to kind of experiences as driving revenue, and driving the bottom line for property managers?
Yeah, and I think I would just echo the same points that were made, that if you think about the average amount of revenue that someone will get from, the affiliate or the financial incentive for influencing a booking, it just is it's an order of magnitude less than the booking itself of the home. And so for us, we do think it's really about creating the best guest experience and deepening that loyalty. And then, on the flip side, as I mentioned, really being a good channel for first-time bookers who may not be less familiar with our brand. As we think about this business, the impact that I can claim is only very small. Only a small portion is that direct revenue. It's really that halo effect that we do think experiences brings to Airbnb overall. And so, I think, for those who own many properties and who are running short-term rentals, I do think it helps you stand out. It helps you create a better guest experience. It helps you with ratings and reviews, and it helps you drive that loyalty that really does move the needle. And so even though it doesn't necessarily have as much of an impact on the direct bottom line, it just drives so much value in so many different ways.
And what are you kind of seeing in terms of those host earnings, or is it still kind of relatively incremental at this stage?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I can't share too much, but it really is interesting about, how much the biggest thing I think that we have seen is the importance of making it easy for the host, because it isn't going to be necessarily a needle mover directly. Our hosts have a million and one things that they need to be thinking about. And so if you make it, if there's friction in being able to make that recommendation and ensuring that recommendation can actually deliver a high quality guest experience, we find that hosts just don't engage. And so we're really focused on making it really easy for hosts to understand what are those experiences that they're actually excited about, that they think would be a great for the guest, and helping that host understand what is the right experience for that guest. And again, making it easy for them to make that recommendation.
Thank you, Douglas. And one thing that's kind of echoed across a lot of what all of you've said is the importance of loyalty, and kind of the essence of experiences for driving rebookings for property managers. So do we think that experiences really help drive loyalty? How can property managers utilize the essence of loyalty to encourage kind of repeat bookings with their guests? Maybe this looks like loyalty schemes. How can we kind of see that panning out as we see experiences build on their popularity? So Willie, maybe if we begin with you here.
It definitely drives loyalty. And not only does it drive loyalty, but on that second, third, and fourth booking, what you can expect to see, because I've been seeing it throughout my entire career in the luxury villa space, is the incrementality where the guest is willing to spend more. They're willing to buy up. Maybe the first booking wasn't beachfront without staff, but now the second booking has staff, and then the third booking now is beachfront with staff. Or they're looking for a larger home to be able to have those experiences outdoors. But more importantly, because that guest had such an incredible experience the first time that they booked with you, and they're telling those stories, they're now coming back to you with more and more ideas on what they want to experience. Let's say they didn't do a massage the first time, now they want to have the massage the second time, or they're talking to somebody, or to a friend or a neighbor who had experience in a certain destination. Now they're coming back and they're saying, well, I want to replicate that. But again, above all, within the system, we're collecting so much information on the likes and the dislikes, and even the smallest of feedback that they're coming back to us post-trip as to what they enjoyed the most, what they didn't like about the villa, or what they didn't like about a particular experience, and then we're fine-tuning it going into the next experience. Or going out and vetting, a particular type of vendor based on, an aggregate amount of feedback that we're getting on a particular destination. Then we're going out and we're finding those vendors that we can work with. And for us, I think, Doug, you mentioned where you guys are vetting it. We're also vetting it, and in some cases, we're actually going into the destination kind of like a mystery shopper and actually experiencing it ourselves before we bring it on, because we want to really bring on just the best possible luxury experiences for our guests.
Thank you, Willie. And Madison, coming to you here, how can kind of property managers tangibly build that loyalty within this area?
I think there's a breakdown. Like, we've worked with some large property management companies, Abode Luxury in Jackson Hole and Park City, and Cassiola, which is just expanding like crazy. For them, I would say it's kind of like what Willie said. Like, you can build loyalty just by offering that amazing guest experience. They're going to want to come back. They know what they're getting. It's why a company like Airbnb does build like massive loyalty. Like, I'll book Airbnbs all over the world because I had that good experience. But at the host level, I would say it's really challenging, because if you're a host and you have 1 property, 5 properties, 10 properties, yeah, I had a great experience, but I don't need to have that experience twice. Like, I want to go have new experiences. So chances are I'm not going to rebook there. I might tell my friends about it, post about it on social media, and that's kind of how they can drive bookings. But I think loyalty needs a massive network globally for it really to work, or, in multiple destinations for it to get that repeat booking. Unless it is, a brand like, I don't know, Disney's good because people might want to continue going back. But I do think people like having new experiences, new photos to share, new videos to share. Like it is very much about like, what are you doing? How often are you doing it? That type of thing.
Thanks, Madison. And Douglas, just coming to you here, kind of from, again, that operational viewpoint with Airbnb experiences specifically, how are things like liability handled? Where does that kind of responsibility sit for kind of property managers kind of on the platform?
Yeah, so for property managers, I mean, they hold none of the liability, right? We work very closely with the experience host directly, as well as having our own insurance and insurance is probably the best word here. And so like, this is really intended to be, the way we think about it is like an add-on and a value add rather than anything that requires much of anything from the property manager themselves. I think we do a lot of vetting, as noted earlier, to really ensure that we're bringing high quality, fully insured, and licensed people that are that we can really stand behind. And so with that kind of, limit the risk of it being a bad experience for the guest. And so, the idea again is to really make it as easy as possible for our hosts and property managers of all kinds to want to do this. And the more that it's a potential risk, the less likely they're going to do it, especially because, again, as we were noting before, the direct revenue upside is more limited. And so, we again, take on that responsibility and, in partnership with the experience host directly. And so it really is meant to be as easy as possible for that host to say yes.
Okay, interesting. And I might just flag here an audience question as it feels fitting to our current conversation. But we have Dave here who's asking, as an Airbnb superhost of 7 years, he'd like to offer people pre-Camino de Santiago walks and coaching. But he's wondering, what does the process look like for integrating that kind of experience, and how might that translate to his overall stays and bookings in Airbnb?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll make sure to share in the chat right after I finish talking here. It's a fairly straightforward process to sign up as an experience host, and your history as a super host on the platform will definitely be taken into consideration as we do evaluate that quality and that vetting. I think one of the things that we're seeing is a lot of that opportunity for cross-selling, where we've seen experience, because we actually have a large number of hosts on our platforms that are both experience hosts and a stays host, that they get someone who books their experience and that they're able to make that person aware of their stay and vice versa. And so it really does have an uplift with really no additional work or cost to that host. And so we do see like some of our most successful hosts are really kind of partnering and complementing those two products together, again, to create this the highest quality overall guest experience and really fill out that trip for that visitor.
Thank you, Douglas. And then Madison, coming to you here, I guess on the flip side of that, when do you think it would kind of make sense for property managers to kind of looking to build their own experiences versus partnering with platforms or local providers, and how might that vary by scale or market, for instance?
Yeah, I mean, one of our biggest unlocks when we were building Mount was that the short-term rental ecosystem and the experience ecosystem are so tied together because they operate very local ecosystem wise. So we basically would sign up a host that was managing a property, and they would bring us 8 to 10 local business providers where they're like, this is the list I want to work with, but there's no way to work with them right now other than, word of mouth recommendation, giving them their phone number, because a lot of these experience hosts are not really online. That industry does kind of lag behind the short-term rental Airbnb world. And so there is that good cross-pollination here, and Airbnb has kind of made it very easy for these hosts to get online now on the experience side. So I always recommended, like, if you're managing properties, that's a full-time job. You're managing cleaners, you're managing your calendar. Like, it's just a crazy amount of work. So then trying to also add on a business of, I'm going to run food tours, and offer those to my guests is like adding on a second business, different operations, different insurance, different liability, like the checklist goes on. And yeah, your margins would be better. But if you focus more on your guest experience and really finding the best food tour operator in your market, because there is one. You're not the first to have that idea. It's a better pairing than trying to do everything yourself. And you can go focus on the guest experience side and the property side. They can focus on the guest experience side from the actual physical experience, and you get to work together really well. In some cases, people do it. They do both. But I would say if you're trying to scale your property management business, we've never advised to also then go scale an experience business as well.
Thanks, Maddie. And Willie, I wonder if you have any comments there.
I don't, other than pretty much echoing what basically what Maddie has said.
Perfect. Well, I'm conscious of time. To kind of wrap up with views on all of your opinions on this. James, if we start with you here, where do you kind of see experiences in terms of becoming a core revenue stream for the industry over the next few years? I suppose, where have you seen it kind of within travel and hospitality more broadly in recent times, and where do you see it evolving over the next few years to come?
Of course, what I want to say will be the main thing for people in the future, because I work at the World Experience Organization. That would make me sound like a proper fool, I think, especially given the expertise of these guys here. I think what's really clear, and I was fascinated to come to this, to hear from people who work in the in the hospitality side, in terms of owned by hosts as opposed to just kind of big hotels. But it's what was it? I think it might have been your comment, Doug, about it's the order of magnitude different. And Maddie, what you'd said about if you're building your property business, that's a different for your, I don't know, whether it's 20% commission or whatever you're going to get from this experience that you advise. So I think that I've drawn up a little thing following from what you guys were going to say. What this does is about loyalty, and it's about differentiation as opposed to the main revenue driver. But the thing is, and I want to pick up on this word loyalty. It's interesting, Maddie, what you were saying about, for lots of, if you are, Starwood or some big hotel chain, then you've got a different kind of loyalty, because somebody might go, or Hilton, and people that have those points, they go and stay in those places, and you get that kind of loyalty. But what about if somebody were, loyalty for a start, consumers aren't loyal. And it sounds, Willie, that you've got people that do come back to you again and again and again, which is great, being the trusted advisor. That makes sense. But if you look at loyalty across different sectors, it's very rare to have someone who's a BMW driver. You might be a luxury car driver, but just thinking of my father, he had an Alfa Romeo, he's had Porsches, he's a BMW, Mercedes-Benz, he's had a Lexus. He loves all those cars, and I've got to tell you, I've driven them all through the years as well. And I don't know about you guys, when you think about the restaurants you go to, I mean, you might have a favourite restaurant, right? But you might have a particular brand of jeans that you go to, whatever. But we tend to also not only buy Nike, but maybe buy a pair of Hokas or something like that, right? So loyalty is a funny thing. Loyalty surely is about is not necessarily about repeat, but it's how somebody thinks about your brand and therefore talks about your brand internally to themselves. They might come back in, sure, that is about repeat, but it's about telling other people. But just in terms of, let's say that you have a short-term rental business that you run in London or New York, or one of those places that people visit again and again, could you not be the trusted advisor for what's new and next? And I say this, we're running London Experience Week in about a month's time, because London is such a hotbed of amazing experiences, both really good ones and frankly pretty bad ones as well. It's that's how the creator economy works, right? It's good things, bad things, and who knows, bad things turn into good things. That's how it works. And so if you were to come to London in 6 months' time, okay, it would all be different. And I say that, I was in LA about 18 months ago, and I had some amazing experiences. And I came again, I was there in January, and there are a whole bunch of new things that have opened. And Cosm, I don't know if you've been to Cosm, and I was really disappointed when I went a while ago, because I didn't think they'd found their format, but there's this new stuff by this little cinema guys that was radical and brilliant. And if there is a local host, guest, who knows the town, who knows what's new and what's next, that's interesting. So I want to come to what you said, Doug, about the Eiffel Tower. To me, I think it's a thing to see from Montmartre, but still, at some point you want to go up the Eiffel Tower, right? It's a thing to do the first time. But next time you go to Paris, you want to know the other stuff as well. So it could create loyalty by being the person who knows the experiences. And it sounds like, you know, on the Airbnb platform, for example, you've got so many different ones you can recommend. This one's new, this one's next, this is what's interesting and hot. So look, I would love to say that all the money's in experiences, and just to be really clear, there is a ton of money in experiences generally, and, you know, competitive socializing is taking off, and immersive experiences, these are insane and taking off. Experiential marketing is changing the way that people do marketing to engage with people, but that's about engagement. It's about loyalty, because people don't remember the boring stuff. Really well designed experiences are memorable, meaningful, and transformational. And there is a hierarchy, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Not that he ever talked about that, but whatever. There is a hierarchy of experiences, and the higher up you go through that memorable, meaningful, transformational, the more that you achieve that, the more you land in somebody, the more you land in them telling a story to themselves about who they are. I mean, I'm thinking about some of the Airbnbs that I've stayed in. We would go back there in a heartbeat, because we went there and me and the kids and the wife have had amazing time. And it just stays with you. And I would tell other friends about it. Would I tell people about the place I've booked via booking.com? Frankly, they're not worth a mention. And so it's a different kind of loyalty. And that word of mouth loyalty, let's, you know, what Willie was saying about the locals, what Maddie was saying about the locals, and what Doug was saying, I think you're all saying this, right? We trust people. We trust people, not just algorithms. Anyway, so for me, experiences are not going to be for the short-term rental industry. It's not going to change everything. I think I'm just repeating what you guys who know this much better than me are saying. It's an addition, but it's such a critical addition that it could mean the difference between ticking along and really being successful.
Thank you.
And James, I'll to double up on what you're saying, right? Because one of the things that you talked about was loyalty, and one of the things that you also talked about was a reward, right? Kind of like what Hilton does with their points. What we believe internally is that loyalty is a feeling. And in many cases, that feeling is something that someone is actually willing to pay a premium for, right? The luxury guest, or all of us in general, want to feel valued. We want to feel important. And that's really where those experiences come into play, because those experiences that are being created for just you, or just you and your loved ones, or just you and your group. And how we execute on those experiences and what the end result is at the end of that experience is really going to come down to that story, is going to come down to that feeling, which in turn is then going to come down to that loyalty that it creates. And that's why we are so focused on the experiences. Again, the revenue piece is great. But for us, what it does is that it builds loyalty, and we see it day in and day out.
Perfect. Thank you both. And Madison, coming to you here, do you kind of see experiences becoming a core revenue stream over the next few years? What are your thoughts moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there'll be a core revenue stream of the short-term rental world. I mean, they're a core revenue stream of their own industry, right? It's why we have conferences for the experience world and businesses and different arms of businesses. I do believe that experiences are going to continue to be the reason why people travel. And it's that really, they are the inspiration, they're the starter, and it's going to just put fuel on the fire and probably see a lot more travel in the future. And we'll see a lot more cool videos about it.
Definitely. Perfect. Thank you. And Douglas, just to you, what's your outlook here for the next couple of years with this segment of the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think we wouldn't be investing in it if we didn't believe it was a massive opportunity, and not only just an opportunity for the experiences industry, which I agree is adjacent to this audience, but is a really interesting opportunity for this audience as well, as just a way to really flesh out and build out that total guest experience. We really see this as a way to differentiate, and a way for us to really ensure that when people travel, they have the best experience end to end. And I think, as noted before, while obviously, the quality of your stay matters, the things that you talk to your friends about in most situations are the things that you do. And the more that we can create that, virtuous flywheel of people talking about experiences and the things that they're doing on these trips, the more it can create this kind of halo effect that I think will really benefit the broader business.
Interesting. Thank you. And to that point. Thank you all. I'd like to thank each of our panelists for joining us here today, and to all of our listeners for tuning in. Some really great insights there, so thank you. Perfect. So just to wrap up, just a few closing comments from me. So our next webinar here at Short-Term Rentals is all about investment in the short-term rental industry. So do sign up early if of interest, and hear more about this in May. And the public vote is open for the Shorties Awards, and the final shortlists will be announced next week. So do stay tuned, and be sure to grab your ticket if you're interested in joining us next month. And if you're interested in working with us, then please do reach out to our head of growth, whose contact details are available on screen. And again, just a big thank you to all of those who've tuned in, and to all of our panelists. Please enjoy this video from the IHM team, and have a great rest of your day.
At IHM, we believe in the power of connection. We exist to inspire, to inform, and to unite decision makers who are shaping the future of hospitality and real estate. Our why is simple. We believe this industry thrives when people and ideas come together. And we're here to make that happen. So how do we do it? We publish 4 leading multimedia brands, each a trusted voice in its sector. We blend intelligent content, curated events, and a strong community into everything we do, making it easy, accessible, and genuinely useful. From online engagement to face-to-face connection, we are known for being insightful, collaborative, and refreshingly human. We host world-class events, panel discussions, podcasts, award ceremonies, and webinars designed to spark ideas, drive conversation, and create impact. With over 62,000 monthly web visitors, 55,000 email subscribers, and 69,000 social media connections. Our reach is deep, and our community is active. We're partnered with the biggest names in hospitality, and we'd love to connect with you. So whether you're looking to grow your visibility, meet the right people, or understand where the market's heading, read, watch, listen, and me. Do it all with IHM.